Oh my god, I don't even know where to begin with this one. This was shockingly shit, everyone. I've got no preface, I've got no intro, it was so shit. Greetings and salutations, my beautiful people, and welcome back to Caddy's Film Fridays, where lots of film things happen. And in this particular installment of Film Fridays, I'm going to be rambling off of notes on my phone about a recent movie that me and Karis went to see, and that movie is fucking Goosebumps. Holy shit, where to even begin with this one? And no need to flee, this is spoiler free. No. In order to understand how bad this film is, I need to spoil a few crucial plot points. Not that it ruins the experience whatsoever, but still, just there's your warning. There's gonna be a few spoilers, sorry. Well, I suppose I should start talking about this movie, well, with a bit of backstory. I used to watch Goosebumps as a kid, but then I got too scared, and I didn't watch it for years, and upon revisiting, some are just hilariously awful, but some have held up well, surprisingly, in terms of, like, creepy, atmospheric, kids' horror stuff. It's alright. It's an entertaining show, whether or not it's shit or great. It's entertaining from start to end. At least you can give it that. But I was never a fan, really, so my expectations for this movie were not high at all. So just in case people are wondering about me being sucked up by a hype machine of something, no, I wasn't even going to see this movie, honestly. It was we basically went to see it because we just thought, why not? We needed to see some kind of film, and Goosebumps is kind of still culturally relevant, I guess. So let's talk about it in Film Fridays, and, well, I'm going to start off with talking about the good things. Overall, the acting was decent. The actors and actresses, they did the best that they could with the script that they had, the lines they were given and everything. They did a convincing enough job, and they kind of pulled the film together, so I can give it credit for that. And I've also got to say that the lawn gnomes, when they arrived, they were pretty cool. I liked them, and especially the way they were animated and the way they moved by, like, every time they moved, obviously they were made of china or whatever they're made of, so, like, every time they moved, everything would chip apart and then reattach, so every time they moved, it was like stop motion, but everything was breaking at the same time, and I thought it was really fucking cool. That's the end of the good things, though. I really cannot say anything else good about it. I'm so sorry, I honestly can't. Just to give you an idea, this here is the good points. All of the rest are everything I could note that I didn't like or I thought was wrong about this fucking movie. So, good luck sticking through this one, guys. And I'm sorry if you enjoyed the movie, but I'm afraid this is going to be a negative thoughts video. It's a rambling video. This is just notes, so don't take it as a solid critique, a solid review, but this is, and there's going to be details wrong because it is just a thoughts video, but here we go. I'm going to talk about everything. Everything. So yes, the bad bits of this movie, well, everything else is bad as far as I'm concerned. And the biggest insult that I think it has is that it's extremely pandering and extremely marketable. That's the fucking word, marketable, for every demographic. It took every demographic into consideration, but didn't take any risks, didn't go all out, and didn't do anything. It just existed for the sake of existing, to make money. That's the impression you get from the second, not from the second it starts, and that's not. It starts off promisingly, but it just dissolves into a pandering, patronizing, insulting mess, honestly. So yeah, it doesn't take any risks in any parts. It's not edgy, it's not scary, it's not funny, it's nothing. It's a bland helping of bland from beginning to end, and there's the forced fucking fixed romance scene that you can see from the fucking second the couple are interacting on screen. And there are all the emotional deep moments for everyone to think about in the quieter scenes that don't need to be there and make no sense. And they're just there because go down the checklist of kids movie. God, I didn't like this movie. I mean, I'm going to say right now, before I go into tearing it apart, it's not one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life, but it's still pretty goddamn bad. I'd say probably so far the worst film I've seen of 2016. Also, I just checked to see who the soundtrack was done by. Yes, it was Danny Elfman that did the soundtrack, and I realised that the film was actually 2015. Sorry about that. Okay, well, I saw it in 2016, so I'm going to stick with it being one of the worst movies of 2016, but there we go, I'm sorry. Sorry for the mistake. It was a 2015 movie, as far as I'm aware. Oh, I don't fucking know. Basically, I didn't like it, so it doesn't matter either way. Okay, so sorry, back to where I was. Danny Elfman, sorry. Okay, technicalities. The score was Danny Elfman, and it's all over the place. Sorry, man. I think you're a very talented conductor, but this film, it gave you no room to breathe at all, man. Like, seriously, there was... In every scene, there was too much music, it was too energetic, too much shit was going on. There were no quiet moments, no atmosphere, nothing. I mean, the intro was okay, I guess, but the intro wasn't, it was like setting the scene nicely, but then everything after that was just in your face all the time. And not even a kind of scary in your face, not even a edgy in your face, just constant fucking music all the time, even when nothing was going on. Oh, it was just so, it was annoying. And if you look at the colours of the movie as well, it's not the worst shot movie in the world. There are some really nice shots. The fairground shots are really good. But the colour scheming, it's all wrong. It was so warm and yellowy and yeah, just warm and yellowy and like there you go, that kind of light up there. I'm using obviously artificial light here, but a kind of just a living room light. It was like you were sitting in a living room half the time. The atmosphere, the colours, nothing was right in that department whatsoever. It just felt too calming to look at. It was a calm movie to look at, which shouldn't be the case with Goosebumps, I wouldn't have thought anyway. Yeah, and the writing is awful and the story is terrible, but I guess I can talk more about that as I go on. The comedy of the movie, if you can call it comedy, it was, in my opinion, barely passable. It's like every single attempt of humour was just completely... It was so awkward and unfunny. Not one person in the whole screen laughed at a single thing that was attempted to be even chuckle-worthy. Like, they were awkward and preschool kind of unfunny. Like, 5-year-old not understanding what jokes are kind of unfunny, but not in an ironic way. Just blatant unfunny, not understanding what humour is kind of unfunny. And there were also... The number, not the number, but even the fact that they were adult jokes thrown in the first place, but they weren't sneaky adult jokes, they weren't puns, they weren't like innuendos, they were just blatant adult jokes, and they weren't even funny either. There was like and they were too out of place as well. I mean, there was a joke. There's the crazy aunt character, cliche number 278. Who I think she'd recently divorced, or she's single, or whatever, and one of the Goosebumps monsters comes in and knocks on the door. The flying dog creature. I'm not a fan of Goosebumps. I'm sorry, I don't know the names of these monsters, but he's at the door, and she opens the door and says, "Oh," it's something along the lines of, "Oh, should we get you some water? Should we bring you back to your owner? Is he single? Is he looking to cheat on his wife?" She said something like that. Okay, it was okay. I'm not even joking. That is kind of this kind of humor the adult jokes go to. It's basically, they were jokes about cheating and affairs and just random shitty adult jokes that pushed their way to just they were there for the sake of, let's up that rating a little bit and let's entertain the people that think affair jokes are funny in a Goosebumps movie. I don't know. Okay, obviously I'm going completely by memory. I could be completely wrong, but the tone of the joke is there, and lots of jokes are like that. Well, adult jokes anyway, and they were so out of place and just not funny, not even well written. They just didn't need to be there. There was even a really cute joke at the very end of the movie, which I won't spoil what it is because I thought it was a very cute inclusion. I won't recommend that you go and see the movie, but just in case you do, there's a very cute joke at the end of the movie between Jack Black and another character who hasn't been in the movie until that particular moment, only for a couple of seconds. So yeah, there's a cameo joke, and yeah, you get your kind of Stan Lee kind of thing. It's similar to that. There's a cameo joke, but with Stan Lee, even though he is shoehorned in quite a few Marvel movies, I didn't think his inclusion in The Amazing Spider-Man 1 was that funny or meaningful or anything. Bring more Deadpool kind of jokes when he's a fucking strip club manager. That shit's funny. But, yeah, it was a cameo joke like that, but instead of just having it there for people to see and recognise and be like, oh, that was pretty cool, No, it's so blatantly fucking done. And the initial joke I thought was very funny, because the actors address each other as different actors. Like, one character's playing a person and the other actor is playing a person, and they switch their roles over and they acknowledge that they switched their roles over. And even that joke, for as clever and as subtle as it was ruined, because the movie felt it had to give the audiences a second to go, oh, it was that guy. Because the pause after it goes on for seconds, and Jack Black just looks awkwardly at the camera, and that's it. It fucking ruined it. It did not need to have that pause. Like, if you're not that blatant... I just didn't understand why the pause was there. I know it sounds like I'm nitpicking, but that fucking pause, it ruined the only bit that I found that was kind of enjoyable. And I'm annoyed about that. And in the movie, Jack Black plays R.L. Stine, the guy that wrote the Goosebumps books. Which is a cool idea, I guess. But even the jokes involving R.L. Stine, it was basically R.L. Stine factoids, the movie. Whenever there was a fucking joke made about R.L. Stine, it was always a fucking factoid, like, like, I could tell you more about R.L. Stine than I can the fucking characters, because they just fucking throw in all these bloody facts. Like, also, like, I can't think of the context of the jokes exactly, but lots of them are very much like R.L. Stine, Jack Black, he'll reply with, like, well, something like that doesn't get you to sell 400 million copies worldwide. You gotta put worldwide in there. And like talking about like what he did as a child, but being so expository, it feels like you're being read R.L. Stine's fucking biography. And like every time Jack Black does something in the movie that seems weird or out of character, or it doesn't make sense, he'll always have to explain why R.L. Stine would do something like that in a very, very factual, formal way. And it's played off for laughs, and it's not funny. It's just fucking irritating. And all I've come out with is R.L. Stine facts, and that's it. and it was stupid. And yeah, so not only is the comedy a complete failure as far as I'm concerned, but the horror was awful as well. Okay, yes, it's a kids movie, but I don't know if you've seen some of the Goosebumps episodes, but some of them were pretty, not frightening, but they could get under your skin, I think. Some of them had really dark themes, and some of them had really fucking cool monsters. The mask especially sticks in my head as being particularly unsettling. But there was nothing like that in the movie. Obviously, you don't want it to be terrifying, because it is still aimed more towards kids, but Jesus, there was no effort, no build-up, no tension, no atmosphere. And every time there was a fright, it was only a jump scare with a loud noise, and it could be for anything from a monster jumping out of somewhere to a fucking cuckoo clock going off, and it made no sense. It was just there for the sake of giving audiences the impression that it was scary, or making kids feel like it was a scary movie. And it's not. It's lazy. And don't even get me started about the monsters. This movie is basically pretty much about every one of R.L. Stine's Goosebumps monsters coming to life and existing in the real world. So every main story that he's written, the monsters all come back to get their revenge or attack the city or whatever the fuck. And you can imagine, especially if you've watched some of the Goosebumps episodes, that would be such a goddamn awesome idea for a movie. But the potential is gone. Every time there is a monster inclusion, none of them, and I mean none of them, act like how they do in the books, do anything they do like in the books or in the episodes even. And whenever they do appear, they appear, make a loud noise, wreck shit up, maybe group together and just look intimidating, roar a bit, and then fucking, destroy things. And they all do that. They all do the same things. Not one of them... Even if you've watched the episodes or read the books, none of the monsters you could recognise as being a memorable monster in the movie, because they don't do anything special from each other. And I can imagine people being really disappointed about that, because they just throw you all of these goddamn monsters, or mention them as if to say, you remember that, don't you? Yes, he's in this for like a second. Oh, and that monster's in this for like, a couple of minutes and a bit. He couldn't come to this, he couldn't come to that, because we've lost him. But yeah, they just mention them. They just mention them in passing, and whenever they were on the screen, they either didn't behave at all like they should have done, destroyed shit, or just walked around and looked scary-ish. And that's it. And the story is horrendous. It makes absolutely no sense. but not in a kind of so bad that it's good kind of way, just in an awkwardly bad nothingness. And I'm not going to say that the idea of the monsters coming to life out of the books was a bad idea, because obviously you gotta suspend your fucking disbelief. I wasn't going into Goosebumps expecting like realistic gritty shit. I was just expecting to have fun. But there's so much going on within it. The main bulk of the story, the plot of the movie, the monsters coming out of the books and destroying the city and everyone needing to get them back into the books, I've got no problem with that. It's Goosebumps, it's gonna be silly. But it's everything else going on within the plot that makes sense. The things they try to make sense that don't make sense. And it wasn't even cheesy bad like the show could be sometimes. So not even enjoyable, it just comes across as lazy and really weird. I'm gonna just read off a list of here, things that I could remember. So the plot conveniences in this fucking movie, which were basically like, I guess you could say Deus Ex Machinas, I guess, but basically things that happened within the plot that shouldn't have fucking happened, but they did anyway because convenience. They're heroes, they need to happen. So plot conveniences. This is the amount I could remember. There were more, but I couldn't remember much else. So okay, so they're all getting chased by the monsters, and the aunt character goes to her shop and hits a monster that was just about to attack the main characters just because she was going to the shop. No reason, she was just going to the fucking shop. And she went to the shop at that fucking moment, just when the main characters were going to be hit, and voila, she runs the fucker over. So that's one thing. Oh yes, also, plot convenience, the main character has to lockpick into R.L. Stein's basement, I believe. And he never does anything like that ever again, and his explanation for being able to do that was he learnt it through YouTube. Why? It had nothing to do with his character. You could have easily just had a key somewhere, and you could have put it somewhere in such a place where you could show how desperate the character was to find out more about R.L. Stein because they're neighbours in the movie. You could make it in such a way like the key for the basement was on the windowsill or something, and to show how crazily intrigued that the main character was to find out more about R.L. Stein and what he was doing. You could have had him show that by breaking into the house and stealing the key, or show you what lengths his character would go to actually get into the basement and find out what the fuck's going on, because you want to think that he cares, right? But no, he can just lockpick because he's a fucking he's a master. He's the master of unlocking. So that's pointless. He could pick locks, who knew? Okay, the police. The police in this universe are fucking useless. And it's played mostly for laughs, but it makes no goddamn sense because... wait a minute, where have I written it? Okay, I've lost my place. But basically the police are goddamn useless. And that in itself makes no sense because the rest of the world is portrayed as pretty realistic and everything fantastical going on is just interfering with the real world. So why is it that police that incompetent? Like, they get a call about neighbour disturbances and a potential domestic abuse situation, and instead of looking into it, they don't. They act like idiots and go, no, you shouldn't have called us, that was naughty, look, there's nothing going on here. Yeah, they didn't do any looking around or anything. And when movies do that, it's mostly to make a point about how corrupt the police in that universe are, or making social commentary or something like that. There was nothing like that in this movie. It was just done for laughs, but it made no sense because they're the only incompetent arseholes in the whole fucking movie, and they're the police. They're the police. So it's just a convenience that they were so idiotic so that R.L. Stein didn't get arrested for all the shit he was doing next door that caused the police to be called over in the first place. I don't know. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so there's, as well, everyone is at the school because, everyone was at the school, the local school, because there was a prom going on, and it just so happens that on the prom night, all the monsters come out, so everyone's in the school. Oh, and the main character's mum works at the school, so she's in danger at the school with everyone fucking else, and all the monsters are coming, and no one believes the guy. And it just gives everyone an excuse to put the mum in danger and have everyone in the school be in danger because coincidences. Oh dear, and what else is going on? Yes, okay, there's a character called Champ, if I've remembered that correctly. And not only is he a comic relief character that is not even slightly fucking funny, but on the main character's first day of school, I'm saying the main character, I don't remember his name. The main character's first day of school, Champ, who's this nerdy shit face, comes out of nowhere in the stalls and sits next to this guy who I would say was reasonably attractive as a guy. I mean, I'm not homosexual. I can't tell you how attractive he is, but I would say as far as conventional attraction for Hollywood movies go, he's, I would say, pretty attractive. And so this ugly fucker thinks, not only is it out of character to have a nerd think that, well, a nerd in a movie like this, think that he's confident enough or okay enough to just randomly go over to the nuke and start talking to him, but it just so happens that out of this interaction, he ends up giving the fucker a business card with his name and his phone number and everything, and his locker number, and wouldn't you know, it all comes into play later on in the movie. Who does that? Who does that? You can't play that off as a quirk when it makes no sense within the fucking movie. It's out of character. It makes no sense. It really doesn't make any sense. And it just so happens, for the convenience of the plot, that he needed his locker number and he needed his phone number to get him involved. He couldn't just forget that he existed and move on and find other friends at the school. No, he's got a business card with everything he needs to know about this fucking character on it. So that's another thing. Oh, okay, this was a good one. Okay, so the books where the monsters were coming out of, okay? Basically, they're original manuscripts of the Goosebumps books. That's where the monsters are coming out of, and they're cursed. So when their books are opened, the monsters come out. They manifest within the ink and become real. Fine, I guess. And that's why they're kept under lock and key, you see? But why is it at one point in the movie, then, when one of the books gets accidentally opened by the key, and then one of the monsters comes out and starts attacking everybody, why is it that when all the other books fall on the floor, they all start opening? No key. No one uses the key. They fall over and they fucking open. Why? Plot convenience. Makes no fucking sense. Oh, God. And, oh yeah, and also, convenience of the plot. The key for starting the entire plot thread of the monsters escaping is right next to the fucking books, where the keyhole can go into and open the books. If it was that dangerous, why is the key there in the first fucking place? I don't know. And what else is going on? Oh yes, as well. Another part of the R.L. Stein factoid about him writing on a particular typewriter with the exact model name and the year it was made, because that's important. You need to know R.L. Stein facts, you know. And that's what you came to Goosebumps movie to see, right? R.L. Stein talking about his own facts. So he has to write a story to get all the monsters back in the books, right? But he can't just write a story. He needs to write it specifically on a specific typewriter in a specific school, which was being kept in the school, which, by the way, he moved there. R.L. Stein moved in the story to that location. So why is his typewriter in the fucking local school? Makes no sense. So, anyway, so they go to the school and get the typewriter, and then he has to write this fucking story, and they said, well, why can't you just write Once Upon a Time the Monsters Get Captured at the end? And he said, no, I can't do that, because I have to write it as a proper story. Why? Is that your explanation? Really? That's your explanation? You have to just write it as a story? And you have to write it on a typewriter, because otherwise it just won't work. How do you know if it's gonna fucking work? And then it just so happens that I want to say the main monster, but I can barely even fucking recall. He breaks R.L. Stein's fingers, which is not only an unbelievably unrealistic scene because you don't actually think you have a feeling that he's just hurt his fingers, not break them. But anyway, so he breaks his fingers, and that means he can't type anymore. Oh dear, plot convenience, so no one can do it. And all of this will then run off into the things that don't make sense. So let's start with the list of things that don't make any sense. Okay, right. All the kids in the movie are supposed to be under 18, and they don't look under 18. Some of them do, but not all of them do. The main character does not look under 18. He looks about fucking 26, so that's already something that doesn't make sense. And in the earliest scenes of the movie, the neighbour's daughter, R.L. Stein's daughter in the movie, and the main character, they bugger off to a fair, which not only has been abandoned for decades, but still has working electric perfectly. I don't fucking know, it makes no sense to me. But not only is that the case, but before they go there, they just go without telling anybody. And in the film, R.L. Stein does not want his daughter to go anywhere other than the house because of the dangerous things that are going on with them and everything. So if that was the case, was he asleep when she came out? Did he know she was going out? Because I'm sure if he did know, she wouldn't be going out. And as far as the mum was concerned of the main character, He was just going out to put rubbish out, and then he was gone for God knows how long in a fucking fairground. Does she not worry? Did she not go and look for the guy? Did he say he was going out to walk? No, he didn't, because the daughter just came up and said, "Do you want to go somewhere?" He didn't tell anybody, so obviously the mum doesn't give a shit. And another thing that doesn't make sense is the fact that the mum, in the scene where the police, the incompetent police, come over and try and check out R.L. Stine because the main character makes a call of complaint that he's being aggressive to his daughter, the mum doesn't believe his son. Sorry, the mum doesn't believe her son, when he's saying, "Oh my God, I heard this. I saw the silhouettes in the curtains. I could see there was a domestic dispute going on." But she sides with the police, who are clearly idiots, and says that the son is being completely irrational. Doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Is she an idiot as well? I don't know. And why don't they search around or figure that Stein's acting suspiciously? And why do they not take a near adult who, I mean, he's under 18, but he's nearly an adult. Why don't they take his word as slightly suspicious? Like, why would he lie about a domestic dispute? There's no reason for it. There's no gain for him. So that doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's have a look then. And, okay, so why is R.L. Stine in the film is a shut-in? Because of the books. He doesn't want anyone to come in because of the books. So instead of just shutting yourself away and making yourself look suspicious and, like, creepy and weird and make people actually want to come and see you and figure out what the fuck's going on in your house, because that's what you do with the main character, so that was a great plan. Why don't you just let people come and see your daughter, but just tell them to stay away from the fucking books? Why didn't you just do that? Save a lot of time and effort, and it won't make you look so suspicious that the police aren't coming over, and it also just makes fucking sense. Why don't you explain? Why do you have to just lock everything away and then make other people want to break into your house to find out what's going on? It doesn't make any sense. And also, believe it or not, they try to throw in an explanation to how the monsters appear. And that would be fine if it was an over-the-top and silly explanation. But instead of just either doing that or keeping the mystery and the creepiness behind it and the unexplained aspects to the whole thing and making it seem paranormal and make everyone feel unsettled for the fact that something happened that they can't explain and they can't control. No! And I won't tell you how they fucking explained it, but it's the most contrived, shitty, pointless, why the fuck did you even bother explaining it kind of explanation? Like, you might as well have just left it as a mystery and it would have been tolerable. It would have been pretty damn creepy. It would have been weird. It would have been fantastical. It would have been Goosebumpsy, you know? I mean, it's not like Goosebumps ever explained in fucking depth and put a fucking hypothesis to what the fuck's going on. They just things happened. And there was either an explanation, which was either very silly or actually made sense, or something that doesn't make sense and contrived and just... like... There's monsters in your fucking movie. You don't need to explain why they're there. I mean, and not in such a contrived and stupid way. I mean, if you've suspended your disbelief that much, you're not going to care about the main reason, the logic, the science behind it. It's fucking ridiculous, especially in a kids movie like Goosebumps. And also, what doesn't make sense? In the basement of R.L. Stine's house, there are bear traps. Why? Apart from the other plot convenience of having a danger for our characters to avoid when they're being chased later on, why are there bear traps? Why? Why are there bear traps? Are you worried that the monsters would get out, even though, oh yeah, the monsters are in the books, which are, in the library, so they're nowhere near the basement, so that doesn't make any sense. They could just go out the fucking front door if they wanted to. So, it's not to catch the monsters, and they're not rat traps, they're bear traps. They say they are bear traps. So it's clearly meant for intruders. And you know something? If the kid got caught, the main character, if he got caught in a bear trap, R.L. Stine would be going straight to prison, I would have imagined, at least. I don't really know, but it just seemed pointless. It seemed like pointless and added pointless danger to a situation that they have to run into later and make you kind of go, oh, I shouldn't have put those bear traps there. Yeah, you shouldn't have, because even when you did put them there, it made no fucking sense anyway. So that was another thing that didn't make sense. What else didn't make sense? Oh yes, so Champ, the character Champ. Anyway, so his character. You're going along, and there's a bit when they're in the supermarket, and they're being chased by a werewolf, okay? And Champ is shown to be a kind of nerdy kind of character, which means that you'd think that he'd be a little bit smart. So, they're in the supermarket trying to avoid this fucking werewolf, and then Champ starts fucking chowing down on snacks. And they're trying to be quiet. And it just makes you think, like, this isn't even funny. This is infuriating. Are you an idiot? Because you haven't shown yourself to be an idiot, you've shown yourself to be actually kind of a coward. So why would a coward eat fucking snacks with a werewolf right there? Why? Why? Why would that happen? It doesn't make any sense. So, what else is going on? Oh yes, the dummy, the main character, the ventriloquist dummy. All he does is speak in puns, which isn't funny and not scary. And, oh, and there was a joke that even didn't make any sense. And you'd think that that was what it was going for, but then it's a case of just for the sake of puns. But the dummy basically says at one point he's driving a car, and he says, oh, I would slow down, but I can't reach the brakes. If you can't reach the brakes, how can you reach the pedal to go? No fucking sense. No sense at all. But the joke isn't played off as something that doesn't make sense, because the dummy is actually the most methodical and, like, dastardly character in the whole thing. He's the smartest one, so doesn't make sense for his character either. What else is going on? Oh yes, here's a thing. Okay, so there's a pointless scene in the movie as well. Lots of pointless scenes. But there's a scene with the mum at the school saying that she hasn't got any signal, and this scene goes on for about a minute or so, and all she does is basically say, oh, I've got no signal, I can't contact my guy, oh, I can't contact my son, oh, I don't know what to do. And then in the immediate next scene, it opens up with the son going, oh my god, I haven't got any signal. What was the point of her saying it then? You can put two and two together. If the sun hasn't got signal, then probably everyone else hasn't got signal. And even if they did have signal, that means they can't contact each other anyway. You can put two and two together, not hard. So that was another thing. Oh yeah, and there's a random teacher hitting on the mum as well at the school. So it's a minute of establishing a point in the plot which is already going to be established, and also having a teacher hit on her, which doesn't go anywhere. You don't get a funny joke at the end of the movie about it, you don't get a resolution at the end of the movie about it, it's just a teacher hitting on a lady. Fucking creepy as fuck. Scariest part of the movie. Okay, so what else didn't make any sense? Oh yeah, okay, so the Abominable Snowman, the first monster that appears, he starts off by wrecking shit up, obviously, but he jumps through R.L. Stine's house, okay? He leaps through the house and leaves a massive hole, windows, wood, fucking everywhere. And what happens instead? Oh, they go to an ice rink. Makes sense, Abominable Snowman, he'd go to an ice rink, wouldn't he? Except when they're running away from the snowman and they go behind the barriers, which, by the way, look pretty fucking plasticky and maybe a bit of wood at the bottom, but plastic at the top. Despite that, they run away from him, the snowman follows them, they run away, and they shut the barriers, they shut the barriers behind them. And then what happens? The snowman, in a comically fashionable way, slams into the plastic, face down, you know how it goes. But he just ran through a fucking house earlier, so fuck you, movie, that didn't make any sense either. And it wasn't funny, so again, pointless. Oh yes, and talking about the dummy again, there's a pointless reflection story as well, about the dummy trying to say that he's the same as R.L. Stine, and that R.L. Stine is a reflection of the dummy and vice versa. And it doesn't make any sense. It's not explained why he thinks that. It's not explained through any of both of their characters why they are both even slightly similar, so that makes no sense. And it doesn't go anywhere either. It's mentioned like once in a stupidly contrived scene about, oh, but you're just as bad as me, or you're my reflection, we could work together, blah blah blah. But there's no reason for it. It doesn't establish anything, doesn't forward anything, it's just there for the sake of having it there. Okay, let's have a look. Oh yes, that was another thing as well. So there were all these strict rules about finishing the story to get all the monsters back into the books. Okay, I can take that, I guess. But then he breaks his fingers and he can't continue writing the story on the typewriter. Woo, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so that happens. So with all those strict rules about the typewriter and the way you've got to write the story, how did the main character, the son of the mum, how did he finish the story off? How did he do that? It's not even made any clear, and it's for such strict rules, they just fucking changed them at the end of the movie. And there was never any kind of plot arc about it. There was never any establishment at the beginning of the movie that the main character was bad at English or bad at writing and he needed to get better with writing or anything. It's just all of a sudden R.L. Stine's like, you can do it, I believe in you. But you hear that from someone who couldn't do it before. But it's never said that he couldn't do it before. So why are they putting in this fucking plot point of him needing to finish a story that he could have possibly finished anyway, but then he couldn't finish it because a second ago it was a case of, well, you need to write it in this particular way and I need to write it on my typewriter. So why could the main character do it? And why did they treat it like it was such a fucking accomplishment when there was no sign of any struggle? You can't go, you can do it, if there's no struggle before it. Because how do you know he can't write English? He never said it was clear. Why is that even a plot point? Even if it was a plot point, he's not good at English. What a stupid... Even if that was the plot point, which it isn't, so it makes no sense. But if that was, how bland and awful is that? Anyway, what else doesn't make sense? Let's have a look. Okay, this is where I'm going to spoil a little bit more here. R.L. Stine's daughter, why was she made up? She was a creation of R.L. Stine. She wasn't a real person. But why? What did it add? It added nothing to anything. It didn't change the plot. It didn't add anything. And also, the consistency of how the ending goes makes no sense. Because at the end of the movie, they write the story, they finish the story, they open the story up, and all the monsters get sucked in. And unfortunately, the daughter gets sucked in as well. Because she's one of R.L. Stine's monsters, a creation. And initially you think, oh my god, this makes perfect sense. But then, it also made me think. Because at the end of the movie, you see the invisible boy. He didn't get captured. Why didn't he get captured? Not because he's invisible, that's bullshit. But why didn't the invisible boy get captured when everyone else did? I don't know. Because I would have figured that while R.L. Stine's writing the ending to his book, he's listing all of the monsters that he is going to capture, right? And make sure that he gets everybody. But he forgets the invisible boy. That's the joke. He forgets about the invisible boy because he's invisible, so the invisible boy doesn't get sucked up. So does that mean he wrote his own fucking daughter to get sucked up? It must mean that. Because if he forgot to include the invisible boy because he's invisible, and the invisible boy didn't get sucked up, that must mean he wrote his own fucking daughter to get sucked up, which wouldn't have made a single difference to fucking anything because she was a nice person. She was just a fucking person. She wasn't a monster. So that makes no sense. That's the biggest insult, I think. That makes so little sense. And it throws in the emotional scene of saying goodbye, but it doesn't matter anyway because she comes back. Of course she comes back. And she's real. Can you believe that? She's real. How does that work? It doesn't matter. It's not explained. But that's just how it is. So either he wrote down every monster, which is then why they couldn't help the girl getting sucked up. I thought that's where the plot was going because Stine had to write, oh, every monster gets sucked up. Which is the tragedy of the situation, because in order to get all the monsters in, that must mean she has to go as well. But no, that's not how it works, no. They had to write every single monster, which either meant that the invisible boy somehow missed the every monster gets sucked up line, which makes no sense, or he wrote his own daughter to get sucked up and then forgot about the invisible boy, which equally makes no sense. So, well done, movie. That was great. And not only is it insulting that she comes back and she's real, but how is she real? I don't fucking know. But does that mean that she can age now? Because initially she couldn't. She was like really, really old as a character, as a book character. But I don't know. Can she age now? Plot convenience? Now they can be together because she can age with him. Oh. But can she? It's never really actually explained. It's never explained how she comes back, actually, saying that. I guess Stine wrote her back into existence, but wouldn't that make her a monster? Wouldn't that make her a creation? How does she become real? Fucking explain, movie. Oh, and also, it never fucking stated in the film at all, with all of the R.L. Stine factoids that were being thrown at us, it never stated in the movie that R.L. Stine was, in fact, a good, it was never established that he was qualified to be a teacher. Yet at the end of the movie, he was a teacher, an English teacher. And with all the factoids being thrown at us, unless they forgot to include the fact that R.L. Stine was in fact qualified to be an English teacher, which I don't know if he is, but the movie didn't make it clear it was, but I know how many fucking books he sold worldwide, so that's always something. So if he's not qualified to be an English teacher at that particular school, then why is he? So If he's qualified, if R.L. Stine genuinely is qualified in real life, I forgive, but the movie didn't explain that. So it had no trouble explaining everything else from the fucking typewriter he used to write his books on, so forgive me for not realising that he wasn't qualified. And here's the real kicker. If he had to write a book to capture all these monsters, why didn't he write it years ago? Why? Why did he leave himself in such a vulnerable position where he didn't have that trump card, the shield, to then just say, here we go. Like, if anything went wrong, if anyone accidentally opened that book, I mean, we saw the book fall over and open without the fucking key, plot conveniences, so whatever. But why is it that the books open, the monsters come out, and then you have to write your fucking novel about how you get them all back? You know which monsters you've written about because they're all on the shelf. You could just list them all off and then write a random little story about how they all get captured, and as soon as any of them get out, you open the book, get them back in the books, and then everything's okay. Why did you have to wait for the shit to hit the fan? And act like such a fucking creeper asshole to everybody that you've ever met in your lives? Why did you do that when you could have just had that book on standby ready to capture all the monsters in the first place? Would have saved you a lot of trouble. You wouldn't have had to be a shut-in. You could have had a life. But no. Basically, how I've got to say with this movie, I mean, as you can probably tell, in the recommendation scale, it's fucking avoid this fucking movie like the plague. I did not like it at all. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but for what it does, it's just disgraceful on so many levels. Not even as a fan of Goosebumps. I'm not even acting like a butthurt nostalgia arse. I have no nostalgia connection with Goosebumps whatsoever. This is just as a movie, judging it as a fucking movie. And it doesn't take its cheesy or charming past into consideration at all. It tries to be scary with all of its jump scares, it tries to be trendy with all of its language, and it tries to do all these fucking things to keep it modern and marketable. And it just fucking falls flat on its face for it. It doesn't go spectacularly bad either, it's not enjoyably bad, and it doesn't go balls to the wall crazy, unless you count the fact that every fucking monster destroys everything. It just doesn't do anything worth noting at all. And it's not self-aware. Like I said, it doesn't take the past of the show and the books into consideration, and it doesn't do any like crazy, amazingly awful like practical effects and stuff like they did in the episodes. It's most of it's CG, and it just doesn't. It's not a Goosebumps movie. It's not any kind of movie. It's like a fucking Scooby-Doo mystery. A bad Scooby-Doo mystery. And it's just, everything is, when it tried to be funny, it wasn't funny. When it tried to be scary, it wasn't scary. When it tried to be deep and emotional, it wasn't deep and emotional. And everything was just so shoehorned in and phoned in for no reason at all. And it made no sense. I mean, how long is this video going on for just the things that made no fucking sense? Basically, this is a movie that exists for the people that used to watch Goosebumps, and it exists for references. Pixels, basically. Pixels did the same exact fucking thing. Treated the licenses they had exactly the same way. Throw every fucking retro game character at you. Throw every retro Goosebumps character you can at them. Don't have any particularly memorable behaviours, and just have some arsehole idiots go and try and fix the whole problem by stupidly contrived and nonsensical means. And don't be funny, don't be scary, don't be risky, don't be entertaining, don't be fucking anything. Just be a load of crap. So it just feels like when you're watching it, you can feel zero effort going into it. I mean, bless you, Jack Black. Even Jack Black, I have nothing against Jack Black at all, but you can see it in his face. There's no effort. There was not even he was funny. There was just nothing there. There was nothing there. So yeah, avoid it. Avoid it. I've got nothing else to say. Avoid this goddamn fucking movie. And next time I'm going to be talking about Minions. That's going to be fun, isn't it?